la pantalla verde. Pantalla verde. Se supone que estoy arriba de un... Estoy arriba de un edificio. Oh, tengo... Se me ve el cuello, ¿no? De repente sí, ahorita no, ya, whatever. Doppelganger. Ah, la weá de mierda. Ryan Croft, que es como Arkham Asylum. Es un manicomio de Marvel donde esta es como la tercera vez que pillan a Carnage y él le ofrece acá misericordia porque les dice que los va a asesinar y que en realidad va a ir fácil con ellos. En tus sueños, psicópata. Está basado en el cómic Maximum Carnage. Hay muchas referencias a Terminator también en este cómic. Bueno, en resumen, Carnage se escapa de Arkham Asylum y se encuentra con otro reo que es Shriek, que es la protagonista de la película Venom 2. ¿Que es una mutante, parece? No me queda muy claro. Bueno, el pobre Spiderman. Bueno, y empiezan a haber una alianza. Esa es una de las cosas más interesantes en el cómic. Que los superhéroes tienen caleta, tienen muchos problemas para poder cooperar. Y los villanos empiezan a crear alianzas como una especie de anti... De anti-Avengers, una cosa así. Aquí se encuentran con Doppelganger. Y las explicaciones que salen en el cómic se supone que él es un remanente de las guerras secretas, algo así. Something like that. El Doppelganger. Y se encuentra con Shriek y Carnage y se hacen alianza. Sí, se hacen una alianza casi inmediata. Mientras que Spider-Man tiene que lidiar con Venom. Oye, mi cuello está en croma. Realmente no se ve. Ya, pilo. Soy como el fantasma Blade. Dun, dun. Dun. Y tú te preguntarás por qué Spider-Man le está pegando a la gente en la calle. Y es porque Carnage en el cómic hace de que la gente se enferme de rabia y sale a la calle a causar desmanes y destrozos. Una especie así de estallido social, por decirlo así. Y Spider-Man los superhéroes que tienen más problemas entre sí para poder ponerse de acuerdo, tienen que lidiar con toda una ciudad llena de gente que quiere destruirlo todo. Cuático. ¿Oh, qué pasó? Puta la weá, se desconecta el control por la chucha, se comprar el control nuevo, weón. Oh, ya la próxima semana. Ahí JJ tiene que poner. Tengo que mandarle unas fotos a JJ. Unas selfies. Para poder comprar un control nuevo. No puede ser que ya me pegaron me sacaron una vida, weón. Soy Spiderman. ¿Qué les pasa, weón? ¿Cómo? Uh, uh. Bueno, yo creo que también la estética de estar con Spider-Man caminando en la calle y golpeando personas viene de este juego de Sega, ¿cómo se llama? Bare Knuckle. Oh, me acuerdo de su nombre en japonés, pero no me acuerdo del nombre en inglés. Streets of Rage. Claro. En el cual Streets of Rage tiene su sentido de que tú estés pegando a la gente en la calle, pero lo cuático es que aquí está justificado por medio del cómic. Y es Carnage que está haciendo que la gente se vuelva loca y quiera hacerle daño a otras personas. Entonces Spider-Man está en la encrucijada. Motherfucker. Oh, no puede ser. No puede ser que me estén pegando estos mortales, no mutantes. La la la. Ay, qué susto. Oh no, va a llegar un rayo. Oh, justo me llegó el rayo en los hocico. Oh, el doppelganger, weón. Qué lata que el Separation Anxiety, el juego que viene después de este, no, no tiene esta cinemática. Son puros textos. Lo bueno es que es 2 player. Bueno, y así es como Carnage está como le tiende una trampa a Venom, por decirlo así, por medio de JJ, mientras que Spider-Man dice: este es un... Ah, no, mis costillas me están matando. Si no, estos punks ambiciosos lo hacen primero. Tut, tut. La 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 la. La 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 la. ¿Cómo te atreves? Oh. Toma. El problema es cuando los toma. Terminan muriendo en la primera etapa, man. O sea, la tercera no fue otra etapa. Venga. Oh no. ¿Qué? Toma. ¿Quieres con Spiderman? ¿Ah? ¿Quieres con Spiderman? Toma. No, me pega con el pelo. ¿Cómo me va a pegar con el pelo, weón? Soy Spider-Man, tengo sangre radioactiva. Oh, motherfucker. Toma, cuidado. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Motherfucker. No tengo que pelear. No quieren pelear. No quieren pelear con Spider-Man, weón. ¿Ah? ¿Se juegan a choro con Spider-Man? Tengo super fuerza, malditos. Puedo levantar un auto pequeño. ¿Ah? Ay, motherfucker. La 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 la. La 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 la. Dana. Creo que... Ay, me pité. Oh, faltó unos secretos, man. Toma, man. Toma. Pero ¿cómo le mando una patada en los hocicos? Spiderman, po, weón. Peleas con Spiderman. Toma. Uh, uh. No. Conche tu madre. Conche tu madre. Loco, ¿cómo va a perder con una loca que le pega con el pelo? La 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 la. Buenos temas, weón. Ya, no, wey. Para, weón, si te arreglé ayer. Estoy arreglado ayer. Hay mucha iconografía también satánica en este juego, así como abiertamente satánica, con el Demon Goblin y con toda con toda la amalgama de- con toda con todos los villanos que se unen tienen un patrón en común que son bastante oscuros y demoníacos, o sea, y está estos dos personajes que llevan a Spider-Man a una iglesia. En los 90 había más libertad, bueno, las cosas no eran tan. No eran tan pa'l hoyo. ¡Oh! No. Chucha la wea. Acá Shriek. La la la. ¡Por acá! ¡Por acá! Weón. Por acá. Claro, y aquí se pitean al apuesto de este compadre. A Puñal creo que se llama. Y claro, pues Carnage ocupó los medios de comunicación para poder atraer a Venom hacia una trampa. Carnage! ¡Oh! El, 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 el traje alien de Brox, el simbionte Venom, comparte sus pensamientos y sentimientos. Y ahora es una piscina de odio y rechazo contra este compadre, contra el Carnage. Aquí te hace. Bueno, esta parte es re buena. Cuando chico le dije, ¡ay! ¿Puedo usar el Venom? Venom, Venom, Venom. ¿Quién se atreve a pelear con una bestia así en la vida? Bueno, esta gente está poseída. Ese es el tema. Soy impresionante, así. Ven para acá. Chao. Eso. Ahí se mete con el venón. Toma. Ay, corazón sings. Gracias, corazones. Stacy. Fuck off, Stacy. Ah, eso. Oh. Oh, maricón. ¿Y estos locos qué son? Son como dealers que tienen la fuerza de poder. El problema con este juego es tan inverosímil en su ejecución estética. Toma. Toma. Yo aquí peleo con... Ah, guatones culiados. Tengo... ¡Por huevo! Oh, no, me van a matar. ¡Ah, tengo un continuo! Sé que voy a empezar desde el principio. ¡Ah! Tomen. ¡Oh! Esto no se vale, weón. Un troll de mierda, tengo que comprar uno nuevo, weón. La próxima semana voy a comprar uno nuevo. Oh, no le llegó a nadie, weón. No le llegó a nadie, weón. ¿Cómo me pega con el pelo? Párate, párate, párate. Párate, ¡Párate! Comenzó la nueva vida. Motherfucker. Oh. Toma. Toma. Pero el Venom, ¿ah? ¿Cómo le mando una patada en los hocico al Venom y sale para atrás, weón? ¿Cómo? Oh no, the motherfucker. No. Toma. Oh. ¡Ah! Sé que es peludo este juego, man. ¡Ah! ¡Oh! Mi sentido arácnido. Oh, llegamos a las 1000 visitas con el video de... con un Retro Beats. Cool. Ugh. Ya. Bam, bam. Bam. Tan, tan, cararán. Concha tu madre. No. idea es que no te toque nadie en estas primeras escenas, por... La idea es poder saltar entre medio de ellos. Vengan por acá. Igual este juego hubiera sido 1000 veces mejor si lo hubiera hecho Capcom. L.A. Gen hizo los de Volver al Futuro y de ser como el pico. Disculpen, como muy malos. uh. Shit. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Tomen. Me las pedí al tiro. ¿Viste? Ah, la Shriek que anda tirando rayos. Uh. Oh, pero ¿cómo? Me llegan los hocicos. Ese riff, weón, la raja, weón. Ya. Alleyway. ¿Qué? Venía a pegarle el hombre araña, weón. Uh. Uh. ¡Oh, no! Esto es lo que me había perdido hace un rato. Pero ¿cómo? Vengan, po, vengan. ¡Oh! ¡Motherfucker! ¡Motherfucker! ¡Wow! Estaba a punto de pegar una super patada, weón. Venga para acá. Venga para acá. Toma. No me gusta pelear. ¿Ah? La 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 la. La 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 la. Por acá. Muere. Por acá. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Sube, sube. ¿Pero por qué? No. Me va a pegar una sola. Loco, tengo que puro ganarle para que me pueda regalar una vida. Si tendría 5 vidas. Que son buenas estas músicas, weón. The Hall. Pelean en una iglesia. ¿Por qué le ponen Hall, weón? En una iglesia, weón. Puta la wea, weón. Toma. Ven para acá, Shriek. Por acá, Shriek. Toma. Ese es mi sentido arácnido. No es una pantalla verde. Es my spider sense. ¿Cachai? Por alguna razón. Venom. Pam pam. Ten. concha de tu madre. Es mi sentido arácnido, espera, voy a arreglar mi sentido arácnido. Uh, mucho. Estoy desapareciendo. Ya sé que vamos a eliminar esto. Ojalá ahí nomás. Estas minas pegan con el pelo, es peligrosísimo. Pero con que se vayan con Head and Shoulders. No, ¿por qué? ¿Por qué? No, corazón. Oh. Pero ¿cómo voy en el aire así a lo más Venom? Me pegan. No los tomé, Venom. No los tomé. Ah. Elmo, Elmo. Elmo. Uy, motherfucker, no me vaya a matar, no me van a matar, no me vaya a morir, no me voy a morir. osito peludo, nada más. Central Park. Es mi sentido arácnido. Uh. Fucker. Bueno que tengo 3 continuos. Las calles de Nueva York 2. No puede ser. Me maten en la calle. No. No. Quiero esa vida. Dame esa vida. Quiero esa vida. ¡Quiero esa vida! Ah. Oh. Mil visitas, ¿eh? Quizá que tengo que ir para allá. Pero ¿cómo? Ah, ahí está. No, 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 no. Sal de aquí, sal. Ah, qué fome. Sudi. ¿Te crees Sudi? Father, motherfucker. Uh. Ven para acá, ven para acá, ven para acá. Toma. No los tomo. El problema es cuando los tomo y ese es el problema. El problema es tomarlo. Esa es la mano. ¿Por qué salen unos viejos con paraguas? Son unos viejos con paraguas. ¿Por qué Venom me está peleando con unos viejos con paraguas? Pero es porque es un estallido social, pues, y la gente está loca. Viejos de mierda, man. ¡Ven para acá, viejo de mierda! Doctor J. ¿Ah? Claro, y aquí es como... Aquí es donde Spider-Man se dice, ok, quieren actuar como animales, los trataré como animales. Desde este momento no tienen misericordia de Spider-Man. O sea, Spider-Man se hartó de la gente que estaba destruyendo todo en este estallido social provocado por Carnage. Y el Spider-Man se enoja y dice que les va a sacar la cresta a la gente. Ruthless monster almost maimed that man cloak. Exactly why Venom wants him cut. ¿Qué? Ruthless monster almost. Nunca había escuchado esa palabra. Maimed. ¿Qué es maimed? Exactamente Venom. Esto fue exactamente lo que quiere Venom. Gata negra. Necesitamos a Venom. The Deep, New York's newest celebrity-owned nightclub, where media heroes come to share spotlights, but where there are heroes, there are villains. There always are villains. The Deep. Ah, voy a pelear en una discoteca. Wow. Oye, nunca había llegado acá. The Deep es una discoteca. La raja. Necesito una máscara nueva. ¿Puedo tomar esto? ¿No? Bueno, eso. Para la weá, weón. Ya, démosle 20 minutos más y después vamos a ver. Carnage. ¿Cómo le puedo cambiar el nombre al stream? Uh. No, eso no hay que ver. ¿Qué se pone pausa? Pam, pam, pam. Tan, tan, tan. Content. Aquí está. Maximum Carnage. Y también vamos a estar revisando Interview Dave Mastin, creo que es. ¿Qué es su apellido? Dave Mastin. New Games. No, Videogames New York. Vamos a revisar la entrevista para luego editar. Dave. Ya, vamos. Una última vez. En mi sentido arácnido. En mi sentido arácnido. Mira el filtro. ¿Es con el fantasma hablé o no? Sí. Ya. Tan tan. Tan. Ensalada de combos para todos. ¿Quién quiere ensalada de combitos? ¿Quién quiere ensalada de combitos? ¡No por acá! ¿Qué creéis que por pelear con el hombre araña? Uy. No puede ser que ya me hayan sacado una vida. Oh. Oh. No. No voy a pillarlas. No, 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 no. Déjame sacar la cresta al principio, man. Me quitan las 3B, man. Ya. Ya me cabré. Me cabré. Me cabré. Aparte tengo que comprar un control nuevo. Ese maldito control se desconecta. Agarrado, mira. Me cabrió la wea. Videogames New York. Hay una parte. Poner música. Ojalá que... Ah, ya sé qué música poner. Estoy ahí doxeándome, weón. Ah,
In the press room. Spiderman, Spiderman does whatever a spider can.
sentido arácnido.
Builds a web any size, catches thieves just like flies.
Oh,
Look
me
out,
desaparezco.
here comes the Spider-Man.
Ah,
Is he strong?
isn't bad. He's got radioactive blood. Can you swing for my thread? Take a look. Over here, be there. Here comes the Spider-Man. In the chill of the night. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, crazy eagle, Spider-Man. Welcome fame, he's ignored. Action is his reward to him. Everything great people up. Ya voy a sacar este filtro, ¿no? Ya, pico, no importa. La 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 oh la. Oye, yo quedé chiquitito acá, ¿o no? Ah, no. La 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 la.
Right behind you, said the
Spider
spider to the
fly.
fly. Catch me
If you can.
Time to cut out.
Been to Ecuador, so I don't have a story.
Yeah, it was funny because I had to take a cab because I got lost. The two guys in front of me that were drunk, and one took off a gun and started shooting the air. And I said-
What?
What?
Yeah, exactly. And I say it's better that I turn around, and I don't wanna be this casual encounter,
I
the wrong place in the wrong moment. So and I got lost. So I saw I need a cab.
That's a-
I remember the hotel. The hotel is famous. I don't remember the name now, but it was very
It's a crazy
Centric.
story, actually.
yeah. And now I got cab, and gosh, every single cab has a prostitute. In the cab. So I didn't wanna take it. It was like 2:30 in the morning. So I'm screwed. If I go in the cab, I'm even worse. It's better I don't go. And out of the blue, there's a very old destroyed car coming, and there's a cab, and I jump in front of the street, and I stop him, and I didn't have any Ecuadorian money, so I say, can you take Colombian pesos? I need to go to this. And the guy say, okay, yeah, give me Colombian pesos, and he brought me to the hotel. And that was my experience.
Alright, so,
Esa fue mi experiencia en Ecuador. Cuento de que un tipo le sacó una pistola en un taxi y que había una prostituta. Bueno, hay mucho material que se grabó en esta entrevista. Estamos viendo cómo poder enmarcarlo dentro de algo, así que voy a revisar el resto de la entrevista que hizo Roberto. Veamos.
But also, general fans of the place and stuff like that usually respond pretty
you guys
well.
are with Nintendo 64.
If you can You can capture this case.
El Roberto lo único que hizo fue grabar juegos de 64. Yo le pedí por favor que grabara juegos de Sega, pero grabó puros juegos de 64.
The controllers are gone at the moment, but I can definitely get
Do
the
we
keys
still
for it.
have the clone, the 64 made from for Asia because they didn't have a license, the Cube?
The IQ.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that all got pulled out when this stuff got pulled out. So I think we put it in a box till we found it in a new home because it was too expensive to settle in somewhere. So I don't have that accessible today. But
Yo viviría en la tienda. Yo viviría en esa tienda. Yo comería juegos y me taparía con juegos. Yo viviría allá abajito. Allá abajito viviría yo.
You guys don't open this, right?
we can if you.
Oh,
have too much
Roberto,
play.
Roberto me
Yeah.
está hablando.
Just like to show everything.
The doors even come off and all that kind of stuff. Morning. Can you give me the keys? Thank you. These need to be assessed, and we need a list of everything that's wrong with it. That was Jacob did all of these ones.
Roberto.
Ya lo logré, bro, ¿cómo estás? En Retrópolis llega a 1000 seguidores. Y ahorita estoy haciendo un reporte gracias al perrito de mi novia que se llama Chispita. Estamos haciendo un reporte acá, me está comentando que la gente prefiere tener más perros que hijos y por eso ya llega a los 1000 seguidores, bro. Retrópolis llegó a los 1000 seguidores. Let's go.
So now we're assessing his work. I don't know that any of them are actually good to put out. So these guys are nice and easy, where they can actually just come right off, so that you can have less of an insane glare from the case across from
Thank you so much.
That was it. You said you're here in New York, though, right?
Yeah, I live in New York.
Okay.
Yeah. I found this store about, I would say five years ago. I was like, what is this? I was like, this is amazing.
I mean, we do a lot of global stuff, but you know, being in this for 20 years and more, it's really just been something that's, you know, we feel like we've seen it all, we feel like we've connected to it all, but also we know that we haven't seen it.
Daniel Mastin es su apellido, ¿no? Oh. Es Daniel, no Dave. Daniel Mastin. Sorry, Daniel. Sorry, it's Daniel. Cool name, Daniel. Daniel con mayúscula. Vamos a modificarlo también. Daniel Mastin. Save.
It all, and we haven't connected to it all. It's just, it's always it's a journey, and you never know. Every day brings something new, be it through the publishing side of it, through the retail, through our other operations. It's just, it's been interesting. There's not been a day in the last 20 years that have felt mundane.
Oh wow,
Wait, let me put the
that's
camera
cool.
there.
That's amazing.
No, with you there, that angle looks
Sure.
amazing. I don't know, like.
Yeah, we're both.
Yeah, nice. It's possible for me to get a Nintendo 64? Is it good? Oh, thank you.
I mean, we could do that one, or we could do another one. This is actually a European one.
The PAL version.
Occasionally we get international people. The 64 itself has some regional things where the cartridges are technically region locked, but it only outputs PAL versus all the other ones will put out NTSC.
And TSC.
Wow, this is a Nintendo 64.
Right.
It's amazing.
Was this your youth? The 64?
Yes, I grew up with this.
Got
What about the fact that there's a new version coming out for like a 4K Nintendo 64?
It'll be like the fourth one. There's already a bunch of them. You know, they're all third party, but analog. Whenever they ship that, you know, we found. You know, I'm personally into hardware. You know, I worked for Namco for 4 years.
What? He worked for trabajó para Namco. ¿Haciendo qué?
I have a deep-seated interest in these, so I have every version of all these other ones that have come out. So I have the Polymega, and I have, you know, all these things. I've played Hyperkin's Nintendo 64 that's still not coming to market for a while. It's fun, but there are certain consoles that you can never match the experience of the original hardware. You know, Nintendo, Genesis, Super Nintendo, those are easy enough to replicate, but things like 64, because it's a unique architecture, the way that it would read and write, the multiplayer aspect of it, the highly unoptimized engine that they used is so hard to replicate. You almost have to sit down and prepare it per game. And that's why the third-party market has not been able to release anything, because they would have to sit down with all the games on the 64 and one by one manually optimize. Nintendo themselves now bringing the 64 games to the Nintendo Switch Online service has also been a very slow turnout. Even their releases of stuff have been very imperfect. You know, thankfully they've gone back and started to fix the errors after the community kind of like steps up and says, "Hey guys, this is not right."
What about the emulators? I mean, I know from the early 2005 until 2015, there was a lot of Nintendo 64 emulators. But no matter what, people still wants to come here and get like the real thing.
Right. I mean, it's the experience though. You know, for you remember, you know, when you were playing the 64, letting someone grab a controller, playing with other people there, just putting it on and playing it. You know, when you put it in an emulator world, for the longest time, emulators were locked into computers. Now they've stepped outside of that, but they still don't necessarily offer the same experience for when you play it.
It's my childhood right here. Turok.
There you go.
This
The Dinosaur Hunter. It's fantastic shit. I mean, the 64 itself took us into 3D in a quality way that I feel like no one should have been able to do it, you know. And this was one of the heydays to me of Nintendo's days of really like looking at quality and touching in even on third-party projects to help them be successful.
Did I put it right? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. I don't want to breaking you.
It's we are a very durable store.
I'm nervous. I don't want to break anything.
But yeah, the 64 just offers that experience. Yeah, emulators do a lot, you know, and again, we are not against emulators, but they only do their part. You know, they let people have access to a lot of things that they can't find. They help us preserve things that are gone forever. They help us play things that never got finished. You know, how many games got
como
canceled in the
Earthbound.
era that you can only play through
Earthbound.
emulation.
Earthbound 3.
But, you know, when it comes down to it, we're also
Mother 3.
really tapped into what we were connected to. You know, do you have nostalgia for a game that you never played? You know, is Star Fox 2 meaningful to you at all?
Yeah.
It wasn't until it came out, and they were like, oh my gosh, we found out there was something that we never got.
This one just turned recently, I think it was last week. It came on 19, about 30 years. It's
Yeah,
almost
it had a birthday recently. That one is a really fun story.
What is the story?
A sordid story. You know, again with this kind of like modernization and re-release. You know, when Rare became owned by Microsoft, there was just that desire for Microsoft to be able to re-release Rare's products, but a lot of them were locked technology and through IP to Nintendo, so it required them to try to get Nintendo to share or to allow, and Nintendo is famously against this. You know, why would they spend the time and money to help someone else's market grow when the best version of it was already on their console? You know, and after decades, you know, we finally see, you know, that title, you know, see the light of day through Microsoft paying for Paramount and paying for the GoldenEye license and paying for the likenesses of the people in the game and redoing a whole new orchestra to redo all the soundtrack to finally get, you know, a deal that Nintendo would agree to. You know, GoldenEye for many is kind of like one of the very first-person style shooter games that anyone got into. You know, that and Counter-Strike, we often joke that those are like the mother and father of the first-person arena. While they weren't the first, they were the ones to really bring it to market and to tap into the popularity of that genre. And from there, it grew. But it's just so interesting to see that come out of the 64. You know, 64 has been all about platformers and family-friendly titles, and yet we are getting these spin-outs that just came from ingenuity, specifically through that console, stuff that has gone on to live multiple lives and to continue to become, you know, whole genres on their own.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I forgot to ask you about this. How does it make you feel about, you know, they're bringing back all these old games like you just mentioned, like Silent Hill 2 is now in PlayStation 5. All these old video games, they're just...
It's great. You know, it's something that's, again, the industry has grown so much, and some of them are dated. You know, we use GoldenEye as a great example. You know, if you didn't live through the 64, if I were to hand you, you know, GoldenEye today, and you never played it, you are never going to enjoy it the way that we enjoyed it. It's just, it's so dated. You know, graphically, frame rate, control scheme, just the way you go up and down, you know, the level builds and just, you know, stairways and things like that. So there is kind of a barrier that someone has to specifically put themselves in to enjoy it. So these re-releases are allowing a new generation to at least reconnect to things that we were there, you know, that's nostalgic to us. So maybe you'll never play, you know, my kids won't play the GoldenEye version and ever love it the way I did, but they could play the new version and at least see what, you know, what we align with it. So you're getting down to almost a media difference.
Igual, lo digo en español o en inglés. I think that it is not the same experience, because I believe there is something about our generation that have more projection into the game. Kids today have the new paradigm, the Minecraft paradigm, to intervene the game. The games, it's a question of illusion. It's a question of how can you feel the game, and I think it's generational. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. The new generations are exposed to intervene the game. We didn't intervene the game. The most, like Mario Paint was the most ¿cómo se dice en inglés? Mario Paint was the closest thing to a Minecraft game.
You know, the whole back in my day story about, let me show you something about how this game originally was. But to see all these titles come back, again, it just shows you that there was a period of innovation, and there was a period where there was so much creativity. Nowadays, everything's built on engines. Nowadays, everything is scripted out. Nowadays, we have that TV formulaic, mentality when we're approaching these things. Yes, there's still a tremendous amount of creativity, but Nintendo, Super Nintendo days, and even back to the 64 days, that is still when whole teams of people were crafting every item, every, weapon, every action was still placed manually. These things were not generated. These things were, the enemies and their movements were scripted by hand. Someone was like putting together the routines. Now we're able to just, jump into Unity and buy assets for the characters and assets for that. We can also buy scripts that give them general like movements and styles, and we can buy levels that.
A eso me refiero. A eso me refiero, que la manera en la cual estos juegos fueron generados tenían un componente de intención, lo que se ha perdido hoy. Como dice él, los programadores estaban a mano haciéndolo. Ahora hay automatizaciones de eso mismo.
That are set up for this, and you can even buy off-the-shelf code that will say, "Hey, I want to make a platformer. I want to make a racer." You can essentially get the whole template and then tweak it, so it's just led to a completely different style of games that we're doing, and part of that is why they're dipping into all the old stuff, because the old stuff has so much tremendous creativity. While it takes a lot of work to modernize these things and help acclimate it to newer generations.
I used to spend a lot
it's
of hours
fantastic.
in this. My whole afternoons after
Y el segue ahí, Roberto.
high school, I was just going home playing this for hours.
That and the PS1, that was definitely like a golden era of wrestling. That was when wrestling was exciting, where people still didn't, it wasn't clear whether it was scripted. People still believed that it was 100% real. In a way, a lot of the wrestling back then was absolutely real, even though there's absolutely parts to it nowadays that are still very real, the athleticism in it. But the back-to-back games, the heels, the characters, and persona, I don't know that wrestling will ever hit those heights again. That it did during the 64 and the PlayStation 1 era.
Do you have a Zelda, Legend of Zelda, Banjo-Kazooie?
Not today. That stuff comes and goes pretty quick.
Really? Why? The most popular ones?
It's super popular, but they also didn't, really see that phase. So some of the stuff, was more available later on, and we were able to just keep buying it from the market. Other stuff was less available, again, because that buyout, they stopped producing it, so it became, there wasn't like an end-of-life closeout for like those games, so they don't exist as in much quantity as they did for like the other consoles.
Super Mario 64 is one of those that comes and goes.
Same thing, yeah. I mean, those are the games that everybody wants. So you come in for a 64 and you want like 6 or 7 games with it. It's always.
La que lata, que esté todo. Ahí terminó el clip. Termina el clip. No está la entrevista completa.
You guys don't open these, right? We can if you.
Ah, sí, lo tengo en. Cambié la velocidad porque tenía que escucharlo más rápido, así que vamos. Oh, properties, audio gain. Properties source. What?
Funny, every time I cover this area, my spider sense tingles. But there's not a sign of Red Dog, nor even a stray cat for that matter. Maybe this long, sleepless night has put my spider sense out of whack. I'd better get some shut-eye. But first, I think I'll check in at the Daily Bugle.
What's so good about this? It's just a picture of a robot.
But Mr. Jameson,
I know what is this before that. Yeah, the prototype. But this is something that visually.
I think it's the second shelf down there. Or it was, but we just moved the Neo Geo stuff over, so I
The
don't-
Neo Geo stuff.
I may have taken it out for the moment.
But see what it is, because this is a very effective item.
Next,
Really
we
would
had all
like to
the
keep it.
with the IQ stuff. We had a display there for a while, but we recently put this stuff in, so we moved all the Neo Geo stuff. So they might have just tucked it back in for now.
And you can show him some other
Yeah.
pieces that are
Yeah.
important pieces to see.
Yes, please. We can start with. I don't know. There's so many.
No, but there's maybe 10, 12 pieces that really use
But also, general fans of the place and stuff like that usually respond pretty
We can
well.
start with Nintendo 64.
If you can capture this case. The controllers are gone at the moment, but I can definitely get
Do
the
we
keys
still
for it.
have the clone, the 64 made from for Asia because they didn't have a license, the Cube?
The IQ.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that all got pulled out when this stuff got pulled out. So I think we put it in a box till we found it in your home because it was too expensive to settle in somewhere. So I don't have that accessible today, but.
You guys don't open this, right? There's
We can if you have too much glare. I can grab the keys.
Can I do just like to show you?
The doors even come off and all that kind of stuff. Morning. Can you give me the keys? Thank you. These need to be assessed, and we need a list of everything that's wrong with it. That was Jacob did all of these ones, so now we're assessing his work. I don't know that any of them are actually good to put out. So these guys are nice and easy, where they can actually just come right off, so that you can have less of an insane glare from the case across from
Thank you so much.
That was it. You said you're here in New York, though, right?
Yeah, I live in New York.
Okay.
Yeah. I found this store about I would say five years ago. I was like, what is this? I was like, this is amazing.
Oye, pero ¿cómo? Esto ya lo vimos, po.
You know, you can essentially get the whole template and then tweak it, so it's just led to a completely different style of games that we're doing, and part of that is why they're dipping into all the old stuff, because the old stuff has so much tremendous creativity. You know, while it takes a lot of work to modernize these things and help acclimate it to newer generations,
I used to spend
It's
a lot of hours
fantastic.
in this. My whole afternoon after high school.
Dave, that subject was really interesting. It was a very interesting subject because he is proposing that the intention, the conscious intention, and not AI, not a script, not automatization, is 100% better than the new games, and that is the difference. Thank you, Dave. That is a very great insight. Thank you.
I was just going home playing this for hours.
that and the PS1, that was definitely like a golden era of wrestling. That was when wrestling was exciting, where people still didn't, you know, it wasn't clear whether it was scripted. You know, people still believed that it was 100% real. In a way, a lot of the wrestling back then was absolutely real, even though there's absolutely parts to it nowadays that are still very real, the athleticism in it. But the back-to-back games, the heels, the characters, the persona, I don't know that wrestling will ever hit those heights again that it did during the 64 and the PlayStation 1 era.
SmackDown.
Zelda, Legend of Zelda, Banjo-Kazooie.
Not today. You know, that stuff comes and goes pretty quick.
Why?
You know,
The most popular ones.
it's super popular, but they also didn't, you know, really see that phase. So some of the stuff, you know, was more available later on, and we were able to just keep buying it from the market. Other stuff was less available, again, because that buyout, they stopped producing it, so it became, you know, there wasn't like an end of life closeout for like those games, so they don't exist as in much quantity as they did for like the other consoles.
Super Mario 64, one of those that comes and goes.
Same thing, yeah. I mean, those are the games that everybody wants. So you come in for a 64 and you want like 6 or 7 games with it. It's always Mario 64, Kart, Smash, Pokemon, Zelda. Those are all the games that you know was the big nostalgia for it. So naturally, everybody wants them. We definitely see them very often. It's like Pokemon for the Game Boy. We get it in all the time, but also that's the first thing to go out. You know.
When do you think you're gonna get it back again?
You never know. You know, the way the store operates, you know, the next time you visit, I could have a stack of 15 of them, you know, or I could have not seen one for another 2 weeks. It just depends, you know, and
Well, I guess
we're set up that
viajan.
every single cartridge goes back into service, you know, even if it's not working. We have technicians that will put way too much work into making sure, you know, this technology gets repaired properly and put back into there instead of in a landfill. Which is one of our strengths. So that means that we are able to accept everything no matter what condition it is, because we can eventually, you know, return it to a serviceable condition. But still.
It is so true what you just said about, you know, these games just going like this.
Yeah.
Super Smash, Mario Kart, Legend of Zelda, because they impact so much in our childhood and growing up.
Quiero ver cómo está saliendo el video.
Everything no matter what condition it is, because we can eventually, you know, return it to a serviceable condition. But still.
It is so true what you just said about, you know, these games just going like this.
Yeah.
Super Smash, Mario Kart, Legend of Zelda, because they impact so much in our childhood and growing up.
Quiero ver cómo está saliendo el video. 1, 2. 1, 2. Uno, dos. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
If I see them, I will just, I will just get them.
There were also just amazing versions of that. You know, nothing has recaptured Mario 64 like Mario 64 did. You know, while they've continued that style, you know, it's just shifted. The Zeldas as well. You know, you could look at Legend of Zelda has so many different phases that it's transitioned out of. Its Nintendo phase was so different than like its 64 phase, which is very different than its GameCube phase, which is very different than its, you know, Switch phase.
I love it. I just love it. Oh my god. I'm a child again right now. I just love it. Just record this real quick.
Yeah.
You have like the NES.
We do, yeah. That's kind of split, but there's a whole section here of that. The hardware for that remains up front with most of them.
Yeah. We're almost done. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You guys are so kind.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit of what every day is this store anyway, exactly what you're doing, and just the nostalgia kicking in for you and you reconnecting to that. You know, it's one of the things that we put together where we just have a no pressure environment. You know, even if you were a customer, we wouldn't necessarily be seeing you as a dollar sign. It's really just like absorbing your nostalgia and you know, your energy, that this is your childhood, and the moment you had right there that reconnected to your childhood is kind of what we built this whole thing about. And that's if I had to boil it down, that's like the special magic of the Video Games New York retail store, is that, you know, you had that moment, but we get to see that moment 30 times a day, you know, but it never gets old. We're never tired of it, you know, to see people, and it's always something different. You know, right now, this moment, it's you in this case. In 10 minutes, it's going to be, you know, somebody in the Wii case, and 30 minutes later, it's going to be somebody with the GameCube stuff. There's just a special magic in being like that. You know, I feel like it's almost like a Disney magic, but without the commercialism and all the weight to the stigma behind that, and without the dollars to get in and experience it. We
como
get to experience
Disneylandia.
it for free.
Incredible. Yeah, that Bomberman. Oh my god.
Disneylandia.
So many stories about that.
For me, the 64, definitely a lot of multiplayer. Mario Party, it was the strangest experience for me. This was like high school era, where it was like, God, 5 of us actually like took the day off from school when Mario Party, I think 3 came out. And we told our parents, like, look, we're not going to go to school today. We're going to go buy Mario Party, and we're going to go to, this person's
Dijeron los
house,
papás
and
que
we're
se iban
gonna
a quedar en la
play all
casa.
day. And they said, okay.
Dijeron,
You
ok.
know, thanks for telling us.
Le dieron
we're happy that
permiso.
you're doing this instead of going out and getting into trouble. And it was an insane day. But the thought of, like, the people that we were playing Mario Party, instead of something else, like a fighting game or a racing game or something, and we're actually like taking off school to do this, just really shows how well we've connected and how much Nintendo really kind of brought to us, where it was able to kind of like subvert ideas and genres. But Wave Race, GoldenEye, Blitz, all these multiplayer games. Bomberman was always in our mix. Where it was
What's
just,
Blitz?
we didn't necessarily care what we were playing. It was just that we had a ecosystem that we could come together and actually play together, and it was fun. Versus like a sports game where it was like, if you're good at it, it's fun, but if you don't really like it, it wasn't there. But the 64 was giving us like a new version of an arcade experience, but really for players.
I remember my birthdays when I was 10 up to 16. I was just playing video games with my friends, and then we created this bond until this day. We keep on talking. Did that happen to you? You still talking to those friends that used to play games?
Absolutely. It's like sometimes I go back and I let them all know. It's like, hey guys, I'm flying in for the weekend. Do I need to bring a 64? Like, no, we've got one. But it's not just the 64 specifically, but it's just that nostalgia. We definitely still touch base with each other in our lives. We shared a good part of 4 years or more together. In an environment where we weren't judging each other and we didn't care, and video games was definitely the catalyst for that one. We also thank our parents for allowing and supporting a whole bunch of rowdy teenagers coming over and eating all their food and being loud and sometimes staying up until like 3 or 4 a.m. But beyond that, it was really just it was the time that you're in ways we feel like everyone should experience something like that.
That is amazing. So you're traveling you accent, don't need to bring up Nintendo 64?
Yeah, I mean, my parents, they're out there, and I have 2 older kids out there, so I go out quite frequently. And then my friends there, the ones that are still in that area, are also, adults. None of them have kids, but, it's interesting where we can just get together and do that. And my cousins as well. I have a very big family.
What about your kids? They play games? They're into games?
Some. My oldest child he's a big gamer. But, I've always believed that, like anything, moderation is important. And there's plenty of time in your life to get into it, if you don't grow up with it. So I would say only my oldest. I have 4 kids. My oldest is definitely, he was allowed to be into it. All my other kids were very moderate into it. And none of them are very big gamers. And it's perfectly fine. To them, that's my work. Which is a very interesting outlook at it. And it's not like we don't have video games at home. They're there, they're very easy to see, when anyone comes over and say, oh, you guys have a lot of video games. But to my kids, it's just something that's always been there. And they'll discover this on their own. And I feel like when they're ready to go on that journey, they'll come to me and we'll take that together. But I have no desire to push them into playing games at all.
And you guide them. You're going to guide them.
Yep.
I mean, really, we have to be so lazy.
Same thing again.
Yeah, then this one didn't touch because we told him this, so we don't touch the other.
Okay, so we tell them good, do the other page. But yeah, that's frustrating.
This is a little like, so. This I think is okay.
I would flip-flop it, but it's good. The layout is there. I gave him the new text for it. I like that page with the text on it.
Yep.
It's
Okay, so we really have to run to
he
the
removed
house.
that other stuff.
We could talk more in deep about this one. Doesn't work at all. I mean,
Okay.
I have to really do the work for him.
I finished all the files. I got the thing, so I think he should buy a couple hubs because he's got to do what it
1,005
right. So you know
to 75.
to do those one at a time. I mean, when we did Earth Atlantis, you know, we had 16 ports that every time we just put one in, copy, and then as they finished, replace them. And that was not 1,000. That was
Yeah.
right. So
No, even because we didn't deal with that too.
I think it was 250 pieces. Yeah, it was something around that.
So we have to give a little more than 1,000. The rest, the other 500,
Right.
the other 1,000 can be done.
Well, there are programs to help mitigate it and devices. I don't think we need those, but you know, we'll see. He needs to just start and see. But also the file size is about the same. It's 600 megabytes. Yep. So. But if he is not making a good enough pace, then I will have you bring some here, and then we can use Robin or anyone, and we can spend a whole day with 5 computers and.
I'm going.
Okay.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you, no, thank you. Can we take a bite? Here's this game that I'm looking for. Did it help? You're good?
No, I'm good. But I was just thinking about what you said. You know, 10 years ago, it was, you know, the internet still wasn't as helpful as it is today. So we would literally get people in every day that was like, I played a game, and it was a spaceship. You know, they would come in and they have like the vaguest description of it. But we also welcomed this, you know, because again, at that time especially, we had a lot of older staff members. You know, most of our staff members are long term. We had a lot of them here, but it was always like a challenge. Someone would come in and they would start telling the story, and we would actually you know, get some of the other staff members here, and we would see if we could help them figure it out. Nowadays it's a lot easier because you can just, you know, you can find a playthrough on YouTube of anything. But back then, just sometimes the descriptions were so helpful and we would get it right away. But almost never were they like a Mario or a Sonic. It was always like, you know, Mag Max for like Nintendo or Kid Clown for like Super Nintendo. It was something that they got because they would always come with the story. You know, it's back then. You wouldn't necessarily go and pick out the game you wanted. Your parents would come home with a game that the person at KB Toys has told them to buy. It's great. You know, they'd go in the store and say, I want to treat my kids. They'd got good grades. You know, what's a new game for my kids? And they'd come home with whatever the sales clerk recommended, which was sometimes good, sometimes just like, here, buy something. But, you know, you would play that game because you got a couple games a month, you know, in the 80s. And these games were designed to last you a month. I mean, back then, if you look at the release calendars, only like 16, 17 games came out, you know, in a month, and a lot of them weren't AAA. Nowadays, we have that many games a week, and a lot of them are AAA. so much content there. But when you got a game, you would try it. You would try to get through it, and you would try to play it because you knew that was what you got. And so we get people that come with all these stories of all these crazy games because it's what their parents bought for them. So we'd have to like name that tune with the video game thing. And it used to be, especially when we were on St. Mark's, so or like mid 2000s, it was like all the time. It was like almost a drinking game.
Any game that it was so hard to find but you were able to like understand the description they were telling you?
Usually when somebody was very personal to it, you'd have that magic moment where they would say something and people would be like, I know what you're talking about because I had that game. And that was the only connection. Like, you would never be able to put it together. But it really depended because, you know, when the people knew the system they had, it was mostly fun. But once in a while, it was somebody who played a game at their friend's house. So they could have been playing like TurboGrafx or Neo Geo, or, you know, back then a lot of households, you either had Nintendo or you had Sega. You know, very few households actually had both. And there were not a whole lot of titles, you know, less than 50% of the catalog, especially in the beginning, was on both consoles. So really, if they didn't know what system they were playing, you know, it's hard to narrow it down. So you have to think about, is this a Sega thing or is this a Nintendo thing? Or is this a different thing that they're describing? I don't remember any real like specific moments where we got it. I remember moments where it was like a collective thing, and even the customers used to get in on it, you know, where they would listen, and the person would have to describe it like 6 different times as people entered like the chat about it and say, what are we trying to figure out? But there are moments where like the whole store cheers when you get it there, or someone says, I think this is it, and then they buy it and they come back, you know, a couple weeks later and they're like, you know, that was absolutely it. Or they come back and say, nope, this wasn't it. So we start the whole thing all over again. Like, you know, again, before the internet was really there to connect to it, but it just leads to special moments, you know. But that's always been our policy is people before money. So we've just created an environment where we want to help people, even if, you know, we're not taking their money. It doesn't matter. It's just.
I was asking about this. Let's start with the Super Nintendo. Where is the Super Nintendo section?
So it's a mix. So the games are going to be here, and then the cheap stuff is over there, and then the hardware is going to be mixed in with the general hardware up there.
What about the game Earthbound?
Earthbound we won't have today. Earthbound is very expensive now.
How much it is now?
It depends on the quality of it. I would say $250 plus is what Earthbound will sell for. Easily for an official cartridge only, you know, the
$250 $250 por Earthbound para SNES.
The big box stuff goes up from there. If you ever had the original, you know, came with the big box with the guide to it that actually had like the pull out, scratch and sniff little cards and things like that. Huge nostalgia for that one. You know, that was
like it's like I have friends that this game is being considered a cult. Why?
Why? How dare you ask why? No.
How dare you ask why? It's Earthbound. Ok. Es un juego. Es que es muy oscuro, o sea, es muy exclusivo. How dare you?
Not to snow you on that one. It was just, there's multiple parts to it. It was an awesome RPG. It took you on an adventure that was a little bit with the occult. It was a little bit, you know, with the mysteria, but also just the nuances of it. You know, the conversations they had, the way that you interacted with it, the way that it wasn't super hard like the Final Fantasies were. You know, a lot of these, before we were calling them JRPGs, a lot of these, you know, RPG series were aligned heavily with skill-based stuff. So, you know, they would have ramping difficulties. So you were expected to do some grinding as you started to progress levels because the game gets incrementally harder. Things like Earthbound, while it still has those properties, you know, it sidestepped that with interesting dialogue. It sidestepped that with fun items. It sidestepped that with creativity. You know, bringing together almost like, you know, Deadpool was breaking the fourth wall. It brought new elements to our game console. And then from there it grew because Nintendo essentially, you know, like Metroid and like other things, it's not that Nintendo shuns it, but for whatever reason Nintendo doesn't put it front and center. The only Earthbound we ever got is actually the second in the series, Mother 2.
Mother 2.
Why did we never get the first one here? You know, again, because it was too early for them to take a chance and do it here. So when we got it, you know, everybody, we didn't even know that there was another series that was more connected to it. All the way up until its release on GBA, it was like, oh my gosh, there's a sequel to that Super Nintendo game that was super amazing. But again, it never came to this country. It didn't officially come out in English. So the allure, you know, the carrot that Nintendo put it out there, that there's something that you loved so much that exists in more that you'll never get to have or understand, just further like intensified people's desire for it. And the fact that for the longest time there was never merchandise, there was never promotion stuff, there was never really any commercials, it didn't get airtime, it was just a lot of word of mouth, a lot of this, but because it was such a heavy IP in Japan, it kind of came over here. Chrono Trigger is very much in line with that, where Chrono Trigger was amazing. You know, it took us out of the very traditional Final Fantasy and put in, you know, time travel, put in comedy, it put in like very, very good writing. But the difference between those two series is that, you know, Square made Chrono Trigger very accessible. They made the sequel completely accessible. Sequel. They made it very accessible. They even put, the ability to play it on modern consoles very early. And that kind of, while it connected to people, it created a big fan base in a different way. So Chrono Trigger, while it's still an expensive Super Nintendo cartridge, isn't as expensive. The demand isn't as crazy, but partly because they did a good job of making it accessible. So they actually built a fandom based on people collaborative liking to play it. Earthbound built a fan base on that game that you've never played before and that you can't really find. So it was hard, but when you got to it, it lived up to the legend where you finally play and you're like, I can see why everybody is crazy about this game, because when you play and experience, you're like, now I'm in on it. Now I'm connected to it as well. So they both just took different paths, but
can we see some Super Nintendo games?
Sure.
I'm looking for. First of all, while you're open this, what does Super Nintendo means to you? What the console means to you?
The Super Nintendo, again, was just that. It was a Nintendo that was very super. It gave us a whole different direction in graphics. It started to really, nudge us into 3D. And it was really the first time where we were starting to see deeper, connections to series and franchises. On Nintendo they did some sequels, but they were just that. Everything was kind of considered a sequel on the Nintendo, but when we started to see, Turtles and Double Dragon and all this stuff kind of get revitalized and re-released, we started to feel that they were serious. We saw things start to evolve, even the RPGs, they hit a new level of gameplay, different, depths, better parallax scrolling, more sprites, deeper graphics. It's something that is very special to me, but the beauty of that one is, to me, that it's on the upper echelon of what is still accessible today. If you play a Super Nintendo game on a modern TV, a 70-inch TV, it is still in the spirit of what it was before. The 3D games is where stuff got lost. PlayStation 1, 64 Saturn, a lot of these things are just, as you connect it to modern television without the right equipment, it kind of exacerbates, the pixelation and the low density of those. But on these very heavy, very square pixel games, it strengthens it. It's the same experience you had then, but now it grows bigger for the most part. There are plenty of exceptions in 3D games that don't transition very well. But for the most part, the stuff that you loved is still a tremendous experience even on modern consoles.
Oh my god, The Legend of Zelda.
The Legend of Zelda.
Amazing. Amazing title. Oh my god.
Amazing, frustrating. I remember playing that as a kid, and it was just it was one of those games where I can remember so many times that I stopped, I put the controller down. It's I don't know what to do, I'm lost. I can't get through this. And then I would just come back to it. The allure of the world that they had built there was so interesting. And you look back on it, and if you look at the overworld map that we never saw, in hindsight, it feels now like such a small game.
True.
And so simple in format, where almost everything was just paging with dungeons. But back then they created this massive world because in your head you could start to connect the map in your mind versus other games are just too much.
Look at the Super Mario.
Mario 3.
Oh my god. My whole childhood right here.
Super Mario 3.
Is there any Super Nintendo game that is basically impossible to find? Or
there are some, but again, nowadays, some of them have been licensed, relisted. Stuff like Musha, again, a lot of it deals more with popularity versus production size instead of rarity. The rare ones like the Mercs release and all the side projects that never really got out, or the stuff that never really fully came to America, are the ones that are the grails. You have the Star Fox Weekend Competition cart, and you have some of these limited promotion things, you know, Final Fight Guy that was only released ever through essentially, I believe it was Blockbuster as like the, you know, mail order thing, which really they just kind of gave you the Super Famicom version.
Do you have these games, like personally?
No, and yes, I have some of them. You know, again, people expect me to have like some kind of crazy collection, but in reality, the two things I remind them: one, I live in New York. I live in the city, and I have kids. But the other thing is that, you know, I used to collect a lot openly, and then I really, you know, at some point sat down and looked at, you know, am I just buying stuff to check things off a list? You know, and I felt like I wasn't as connected to some of this stuff. So I you know, really honed in on what I'm connected to. So there's certain franchises and series I love like B-list horror games. I love very weird games, but also I just have a passion for hardware. So a lot of my collection deals about hardware, but I have a huge interest in historical items, and it's the good,
Super
bad of
Nintendo
them.
too, right?
These
Oh,
are
okay.
Nintendo, yeah. It's all Nintendo here, so it's Super Nintendo's kind of here. But historical items, so like E.T. for Atari, you know, it's a great thing, where that game changed, or was a catalyst to usher in a new era, you know, so that one is very, very important. There are a lot of reasons why something would be historical, but, you know, attaching the story to it, and I guess that is a lot of the way that we are the way we are, because Julia and I both have such a different attachment to history. You know, we both see these items in different ways, and a lot of like what he's talking about with the Electronica, which was like the kind of essentially a knockoff of Game & Watches,
Watch.
but it had like a rough history, getting into stuff like Dendy, you know, again, going back to Russia where the Nintendo was never officially existed. So if you grew up in Russia, you know, in the 80s, like you thought Dendy was a real console, when actually it was a Famicom clone, and they were just selling you Famicom knockoffs.
True.
But the same is for South America. You know, you got into that, and there's the beautiful storied story of Nintendo CA, where there was a company in South America that was representing that they were the official branch of Nintendo for South America. They weren't. It was a completely legal operation. They were basically reboxing Famicom stuff, but they
What?
actually put out
El
Nintendo
El Creación, ¿o no?
Fun
Oye,
Club
Creación.
newsletter. They actually put the Nintendo seal on them. They actually maintained a distribution network with the actual retail stores selling them
Donkey Kong.
the American stuff.
Oh my god.
So that's the history of stuff I'm into. Donkey Kong was that great example. You know, again, transitioning something. It took the Super Nintendo to do this. You know, we all know the Donkey Kongs before Super Nintendo. You know, it's a great style. It's very arcade-like. You know, it's platforming. So they kept doing different ways to it. But it wasn't until they got to the Super Nintendo, new technology, they sat down and said, how do we make this, you know, different? How do we make this more engaging? How do we make this more like a console game? And it took the new Super Nintendo's hardware to do it. And it just, that made Donkey Kong now feel like a franchise. You know, yes, on Nintendo we had Donkey Kong 1, 2, 3 math, things like that. So you had sequels and sequels and sequels. But when they established the Donkey Kong Country line, like, oh my gosh, you know, Donkey Kong is a new genre. There's 2 or 3 different styles of Donkey Kong now. So it's really there, you know. But I feel like that is Nintendo's secret strength, is that they were able to guide in the development and programming. They had the familiarity to really transition the market, going to Super Nintendo and adding these deep, you know, gradients and almost VGA style, adding in great multiplayer, adding in incredible depth, but also cultivating a game as a journey. You know, Nintendo games were a challenge. On Super Nintendo, they were an experience. And then on the generations after that, they started to become back to technology, going into 3D, and they became very storytelling, you know, on the 64. You know, if you look at the narrative across the board, 64 games incorporated more story. Super Nintendo games still had very little dialogue.
Esa es la diferencia, claro.
You know, you were set up with an idea of what you were trying to do, but it was all through gameplay. And Nintendo, all the games were very much making it through the level. you know, with the boss at the end, and that was very indicative of the technology that we had and the way that they programmed games. But you can kind of see as they transitioned, it allowed for new things to come in. You know, why does Street Fighter even have a story?
You touch a very important fact that is when for example, with the Dreamcast, right? When it comes from the Dreamcast, and then we got the PlayStation 1, that it's basically, in my opinion, is like reading a book when it comes to PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
Silent Hill, Metal Gear,
Oh, absolutely.
Resident Evil. And then even though the Dreamcast has the whole potential, because it was one of my beloved console, and then it just died because PlayStation 1 came and
Sorry,
it's
I
a
mean,
revolution. What
it was after that. I mean, Dreamcast is my absolute favorite console. I feel
Why?
like it is one of the best. One, you got the arcade experience at home. So instead of trying to create something new, they in tandem built their arcade division. You know, Sony and Nintendo, and they had arcade divisions that were building games for arcades. But the Dreamcast married the two together. But they were coming off a huge loss from the Saturn. The Saturn not only essentially ruined Sega, it created a giant rift between Sega of Japan and Sega of everything else.
Yeah.
They were now at ends. You know, Sega of Japan had you know, muscled through. You know, we're in charge. This is how we're doing it. And Saturn didn't work globally. You know, it failed to really get a base out of that, but they lost so many programmers because it was so hard to do. They pushed it out the door so fast. It didn't have like the runway to let people come into it, so it became a very Sega console. When they switched to Dreamcast, they were already carrying the weight of trying to make the Saturn work. So Sega already had huge internal teams making games and being very, very creative. So that's, you know, they were very poised. So when the Dreamcast came out, they had these teams that just had ideas that they couldn't get to work for Saturn. It didn't make sense to fundamentally go that, but now they had an engine that was easy to make games, you know, suddenly to churn out these things. And that's why on the Dreamcast we have so many Sega or Sega related hits, and they just kept coming for that console because they were just so poised after such a bad experience with the Saturn. But leaning into the market, you know, they're technically of the PS2 era. So they got to take all that fun knowledge and experience from seeing the 64 successes, from seeing, you know, the PlayStation's 1 successes, you know, full motion video, audio dialogue, even being able to do like higher graphical engines, you know, multiplayer support for the 64 where PlayStation really didn't capitalize on it. And they were able to bring it all together, but they also went deep, you know, adding the modem, connecting to the network, in which we hadn't seen yet and we weren't ready for yet, but also that became a premium price. So unfortunately, you know, Sony did their homework and Sony came out swinging with the PS2. Backwards compatibility,
Yes,
DVD playback, eventual network support for additional controllers eventually, but keeping it more cost effective. I mean, Sony just checked every box to destroy the Dreamcast,
and then making these games like so literature complex.
Right. I mean, some of them and other ones weren't, but even Mortal Kombat got like pages of scrolling text. Like, this is Mortal Kombat. Like, you know, can I push the button any faster to get through it?
When I kill.
Right. I want to play the game, but you know, there's a thing about that. You know, so Dreamcast is my personal favorite console. You know, we actually still work in the Dreamcast realm. You know, we just did VMU Shell. Replacement housings is like a Kickstarter this year. We still publish and put out independent games. I have meetings all the time where we're actually trying to spur more stuff, you know, and a lot of it's in the commercial world. We're actually trying to license over things to bring to the Dreamcast market because Sega is absolutely fantastic about it. You know, Sega has outlined like the things to do and don't do. Don't put our logo on it. There's a line that says this is not sponsored, endorsed, or produced by Sega. So Sega actually went out of the way in the early days of the independent scene. Unlike Nintendo, you know, Nintendo just goes into litigation, cease and desist anyone that they feel is there, but there's just so many that they can't stop them all. Or Sega has always been like the opposite of Nintendo, where they embraced it, you know, and that's the beauty of it. You know, Dreamcast, I could go all day on.
We can talk about it the whole day, but I know you're busy.
That's
Thank you so much for your time. I really.
Down for it. Hey, if you ever want to put together some projects, we are building out some programs. We're putting together. We have like a little studio downstairs. We used to do a lot of stuff with like Giant Bomb.
Let's talk about Dreamcast games.
Actually, I sorry to interrupt. I have an Instagram account with one of my friends. It's called Ludo Vision, and then we talk about retro video games. We even did a documentary about my friend. He's from Chile. I'm from Ecuador. Video games always see Latin America as a country divided into one adventure games like Tomb Raider or drug games like Call of Duty.
Right.
So there's a lot of racism on it, and that was my thesis when I graduated from. I did my master's in
I feel
journalism.
like puzzle did well there too, right? I mean, puzzle games had a genre.
Tell me
kind
more
of.
about the projects. I want to get involved. I love.
Esa es la tesis de Roberto Veala que se llama Cultura Gamer, Estereotipos de Latinoamérica, está en el canal. Es un excelente, todo está escrito, es la tesis universitaria de Roberto, la cual es bastante, yo le digo, aquí se le dice aguja, needle, precisa. Excelente documental, está increíblemente escrito por Roberto. Bravo Roberto por ese, ¿cómo se llama? Por ese documental.
I mean, we're very active, but we have an open door policy with media and creation. So we get content creators that come in all the time. We get crazy stuff.
Videos. Yeah.
We do also, we've done all the big networks multiple times. Between the news networks and like the game networks. We used to have standing series with like Kotaku and I have Game Rant coming in next week, and we did. We've done everything and been everywhere, but we actually have outlined these series that we wanted to put together. Some of them in conjunction with a news thing on a repeated basis, but some of them we want to come out of the store themselves. So we've been looking for a couple partners. To take on individually like each one of these things. One was where we take these items that have these stories and we sit down and we tell the stories behind them. So we just introduced, and it's short to medium form videos that will just be steady released. Some of it also includes, again, utilizing downstairs. We have our repair studio, but we're also building or putting back together. We have a maker studio, but also like a little film corner. Where we can even bring in customers from the store. And it's something where it's like, someone sits down and puts records, so someone goes down with them, if someone's bringing in something very unique or that has a story behind it, now it's a step above just capturing that. We actually go down and we can sit them down there and we can just do a very informal interview. Tell me, where does this come from? A little bit of that leans into like the Pawn Stars mentality without like the fakeness of what Pawn Stars was. Where we have to handshake and pretend to make a deal and call, call someone
No lo sé, Rick, parece falso.
who knows more about it. We don't care about that. It's really about it in the name of preservation. So there's actually like 10 or 15 projects that we have. That now in this year we've really started connecting to people and looking for like a second half of it, where one, it gets to kind of go on the networks, but we need someone on each of these projects that is kind of helping it go through, because we get divided by so many things, between shows and publishing and the store and the holidays. For Julio and I to be point of contact for this, they come in waves. Where it's like, okay, now this month we have time to work on it, and we don't. So we need all these projects we've identified. They need a partner to come in and say, hey, all right, this is the topic, or let's outline this all today, and then we'll start to put stuff together, and we'll put a schedule down for filming.
If you need help or anything, like we could talk about it, I would love it or something. Yeah. Yes, I would really definitely.
I think it would be a solid thing. We can definitely talk more.
Yes, let's talk more.
It's one of two things that we would do. One is that we would, do it in collaboration with Video Games New York and Target just for that audience. The other one is that we would shop around for, a media network to kind of bring this in. Most of them we say no to, as we find that, 5 years ago, when the video game journalists were all independent, not actually independent, but they weren't owned by basically Gawker. you know, everything was different. Now that they've all been kind of steamrolled under to one of 3 different ownerships, it's all become very stagnant. So we're actually stepping away from that model. But I mean, we even talked with MTV about, you know, doing a TV show in here for.
Awesome.
It was basically like a Pawn Stars thing. It wasn't directly for MTV.
Yeah, that
it was
one in
for
the front, right? The Nintendo, that one?
Yeah, we have the actual
In the
real
front?
systems in the front.
No,
Yeah.
I need to record that. Oh my god, you have so many. I can stay here for 10 hours. This is awesome.
Ya, yo viviría ahí. Yo viviría allá abajo. Ahí, así. Dormiría con los juegos. Me taparía con juegos.
Yeah, we'll talk in email. I'll send you some of the general lists.
Yeah,
and
thank you for saying yes to me. Like, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We're a yes place.
Ya,
This is
hablando pura wea. Excelente trabajo, Roberto. ¿No se escucha toda la wea o no? No se escucha nada, weón. Toda la wea, weón. Escucha tu madre. ¿Dónde estás comiendo pizza? Come pizza, come pizza, bro. ¿Dónde estás comiendo pizza? Oh. Excelente trabajo, bro. Qué interesante la conversa con Daniel Mastin. Un insight a cosas que nosotros acá en Latinoamérica solamente teníamos, porque ya que tenemos, y ahora la mayoría de la gente de mi edad no está pensando en esta wea. Pero bueno, yo y Roberto. Muchas gracias por ver el live. Ya viene más material este año. Recuerda, Ludovisión, rescatando lo bueno del pasado.